Hello again, my friends. I want to share something that I think is really beautiful today and hopefully encouraging to people in recovery or in the process of any kind of healing. And that's that recovery and healing are a beautifully spontaneous process that have their own structure inherent within them. And this is something I've been leaning into a lot recently, and it's come up the farther in my own journey of recovery that I become. And as I begin to work with, not, and partly I've been coaching long enough now that I've gone with people from the early stages of recovery into their later stages, and it's the differences of what it's like to heal in those different stages are very stark from one another. And the this is sort of a follow-up. I just noticed that I have a video called for those with longer recoveries, and this was kind of a part two to that, because I want to explain why longer recoveries can be a good thing. And this is the lowdown on that, is that when, especially, and again, my specialty is recovery from limbic system impairment and chronic illness, and I'm sure that there is a similar path for those in other kinds of recovery. But part of this just is about healing in general. And we have to work to just calm the surface level things for a while before we get into the deeper level stuff. And specifically with limbic system impairment, you can spend a couple of years just getting, the very basic level of calm wired in and having all your physical symptoms fade. And a lot of times people get like a nice little kind of oasis period of like a few months where life's just normal and it feels good, and then a lot of times other stuff starts coming up. And a pattern that I've just practiced acceptance in my own recovery, and it's been difficult at times, as acceptance is. And one thing that can happen is people can be afraid of how long recovery is going to take, or they can resist when other layers are coming up later, or question, why is this happening, and so on and so forth. And there's really, the farther I go, the more the journey I'm seeing with hindsight, and I'm realizing that there's a beautiful order within that chaos of the apparent chaos of recovery, that when we are in that more heightened state at the beginning, it's not possible. Like, especially again with limbic system impairment, your brain is going round and round in a circle, and it's like those spinning doors in big shops in like New York City or any other like big city, where no new information can get in. It's just spinning around. You can't get in. It's going too fast. So just calming that down and like opening up the door to your brain and cleaning it out, being able to get in there and clean up, do basic kind of cleaning and organizing within your brain, is the first step. And specifically when it comes to healing deeper trauma, and this is something again that people have questions about when they start, and then it does actually resurface, and as it should, later on after that first level is done. And I read this definition of trauma recently, that trauma is anything that overwhelms the brain's ability to cope. And from what I have read of Carl Jung, it's also, and just my own experience, it's also that it's beyond the brain's ability to process it, because when you're in a stress state, you don't have access to your higher brain function, so you cannot make sense of what's happening. You're completely like a victim to whatever is happening in that moment. And the survival brain says, we have to make sure this never happens again, so we're going to replay the trauma, and we're going to make sure that we never get into a situation like this again by replaying it constantly and having all these fears. What that actually does within reality as it works, also known as the law of attraction in quantum physics, and the rest of how reality works on the actual scale of like how reality actually works according to science, not according to the primitive reptilian part of your brain. What that does is it actually attracts more situations where you will experience similar trauma again. That's actually what it does. And that's how people can, we can stay stuck in a place that's actually spiraling down after a traumatic event. The primitive survival instinct doesn't work to keep you safe in the bigger picture. It can keep you safe in the moment, but it doesn't keep you safe in the bigger picture. And so all that's necessary for healing is to be able to take a higher perspective take a high enough perspective that whatever happened, you can process the events from a higher perspective, and it resolves. There's an understanding, there's ability to have compassion, to have forgiveness, to have unconditional love for yourself and anyone else who is involved in the traumatic situation. And that's what heals. Unconditional love is the only thing that heals. However, when we've been living in a trauma state for a long time, again, the door's spinning too fast. Nothing can get in. You can't process anything because the brain's just spinning its wheels. So simply slowing that down, healing, calming, bringing your body, getting yourself a basic sense of safety in the world is that necessary first step. And then a lot of times, again, you get that kind of grace period once you've hit that first level of recovery. You're like, oh, okay, life is normal. I'm getting back to work. I'm whatever it is you're doing. Like, I'm feeling like myself. I'm feeling normal again. I'm just going back to living my life. And then a lot of times after a few months, other things start to pop up and you realize, wait, hold on, I'm not done. That's a good thing. After how much work you've put in for that first however many months you spent on the first layer, be grateful you have a break. It's really it's a grace period. It's a wonderful time to just be like, yes, just live, just be myself, just revel in enjoying what you've already gained. And then those other things come up, and this is the thing, after that level, and you will have gained a large understanding of how you tick, how your inner landscape works, how you work as a person. And as other things start to come up, that door's no longer spinning, and your brain, you are using the higher parts of your brain function, the more, again, human, more, however you look at it, more newly evolved, higher parts of your brain. And as patterns come up that came from trauma, as trauma itself resurfaces, memories come back, patterns come up that you realize are keeping you not as stuck as you were before, but that have you going back in the wrong direction, or have you stuck in the more like medium level stuck, where it's like you don't feel like you're dying, but you're definitely not thriving. You're kind of in between, and you're feeling a bit like, I can't get out of this in between spot. That's the fact that you've got that higher brain function activated and that self-awareness activated means you're able to process what's happening. You're able to continue to take a higher perspective and take whatever your brain or your life is giving you and find resolution, replace those patterns, and have you now have that higher place to stand from, to look down and understand what happened, what is happening, why it's happening, and what to do in order to resolve it. So, and then a lot of times, even there's some of those things can happen. We have another bit of a grace period, and then a lot of times other stuff comes up. And I had an aha moment on a call this morning, realizing that, I mean, for a lot of us, if there's not, and I've trained myself very hard not to do this, because it's I think something of a natural tendency to want to just get it done with, to want to just be done with the process of healing, to be done, to feel like we're back in the saddle again, like we have control over things, and we're not going to constantly have more things coming up. But this is the other thing, the reality of life that I've been really sinking my teeth into for the last 6 months or so, and really even more than that, the last 3 or 4 months. Yeah, the last 3 or 4 months more so, is that there is a structure already present in the human person and in the world. And there was a video I watched with a friend a long time ago, a YouTube video about, it was a mathematical equation that described a number of things in nature, but you had to take like an enormous amount of material over a very large span of time to see the order within it. It looked like apparent chaos, but yet there was actually a mathematical principle to what seemed like apparent chaos, and this was to do with the natural world and the ebb and flow of ecology in the natural world, and just a lot of places in the universe. And part of what I've been working on doing, because there's just so much fear and then so much forcing of trying to force myself to be whatever a human being is supposed to be, and it wasn't working. And I finally was like, and again, I'll use the language that works for me, replace this with what works for you, but I was like, I choose to believe that God gave a structure to my being, and that I can fall back into that structure. If I just let go and fall, there's a structure, there's a skeleton to my internal being that I'm working with here. I don't have to create myself out of thin air. Like, everything in the world has an order to it. So I'm going to trust that I have an order, and really what I'm doing is cooperating with that by doing what comes up when it comes up, and healing things as they come up, but also not pressuring myself to try to cross some finish line that's not really there faster than I possibly could. And again, part of this is so fundamental, is realizing that your brain, which is, again, if you're dealing with trauma or healing of any kind, that's all here. It's everything, your body and your life, every part of your body and every part of your life is stored in your brain. So that's where the healing is going to be happening, primarily, usually. And I just lost my train of thought. But yeah, that there is a natural structure to the healing, and that there's a natural structure to you, and what you're doing is cooperating with your life and not trying to force it. You're not trying to create something out of thin air. there's a things will come up in the order they're meant to come up, and you just approach what's happening when it comes and accept it and work with it. And ultimately what happens if you push yourself too hard to try to heal trauma really quickly, what happens is if you try to bring up too many things at once, you get your limbic system will get activated again, your emotional center. It's too much load for your brain, and it can put you back in a rut. And that's why I don't recommend people addressing, because I don't think it's possible, because of the way the brain works, for you to address deeply lying trauma when your brain is still just spinning in circles. It doesn't have the bandwidth to process what happened when it's just like panic about everything. So there is a real beauty and a real structure already inherent within your brain, within yourself, within your heart and soul and your body as a human person. There's a design already there for you to work with, and just accepting what comes up, enjoying the moment as much as you can, like looking at life as a cooperation with instead of a control over or a forcing, gives you a great sense of peace. And it's more effective and actually shorter in the long run, because you're not trying to force things and then having your system get overloaded and having to step back and do that dance. If you don't do that and just accept the process as it goes, it's actually shorter that way. But yeah, I've just been struck by the beauty of, now again, I'm in a week, about a week here, I'll be at 4 years since I started my recovery process. And it's just, honestly, it's gut-wrenchingly beautiful to look back at my journey and see how it's all happened. Like, every single thing that happened was necessary. There was no part of my journey that is not beautiful and necessary and deeply enriched my life. The healing mechanism is the trauma, in a way. Like, when these things come up and activate, it forces us to grow in resistance to what's happening, the intensity of it, and it forces us to take a higher perspective so that we can move forward and get unstuck. So recognizing that when you're having symptoms or you're having issues or you're having problems, that is the healing mechanism right there. That's been triggered so that you have to find a way around it. If it never came up, you would never have to heal it, and you would stay, in a place where you're not really embodying your potential, not just for what you can accomplish as a human person, but for how fully you can experience life and how much joy and love you can experience and give. So recognizing that the trauma resurfacing, the difficult parts of recovery, each and every one of them is a gift. That is the healing mechanism. A lot of times we fight it, but it's getting in and asking, okay, what is this teaching me, that allows us to move forward in the quickest manner. And because that's how healing works. That's how it works. So yeah, I just wanted to share that, because I just think there's a great peace we can gain when we realize that the structure's already there. We don't have to force anything. We can just flow with the process, address what's happening in the present moment, and know that things will arise in exactly the right order for your healing to unfold as quickly as it can. Because just like, if you get a scratch or you break a bone, you know that you can't rush the healing, right? You know that if you overload that part of your body too quickly, it can just make it, can make the wound up and up again. It can delay the healing of the bone, so to speak. So really just creating a healthy environment by accepting and working with what's happening and trusting the process is the fastest way forward. And realizing that, you are not a product. Your recovery is not meant to just produce a perfect human being. It's there to serve you. The process of healing is one where you get to work with life, God, the mystery of existence, whatever you want to call it, to create the most amazing life for yourself and the people you love that you can. It's a process that, and again, once you're living within your recovery, it's not like life stops taking effort. We're still in that co-creative space for the rest of our lives. We just learn the pleasure and the beauty and the joy of creation, of the creation of ourselves and of our lives and what we want to offer the world. So that's what recovery is about, is getting yourself on that path where you create a way of being that's fulfilling and life-giving for you and everyone around you. So that's my, for those with longer recoveries, part 2 kind of blip. And I hope that you find encouragement and peace in that, to come back to the present moment and just know that if you're approaching this moment with love and acceptance and curiosity, that's all you need to do. All there is now. So just enjoy this moment and do what you can in this moment, and trust that everything is unfolding perfectly for you. And all of my love to you, my friends, on your journey, whatever it may look like. Mwah!